The false spiritual persona. I saw a video the other day of Teal Swan talking about this, and it was absolutely amazing. And I have to say, whilst I don't agree with everything Teal Swan says, she was totally correct. What are we talking about? We're talking about when people awaken or think they've awakened, because a lot of people think they've had a Kundalini awakening, and actually all they've had is a religious experience or a spiritual experience where they've released some trauma. They've suddenly shifted from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. They've stimulated maybe some oxytocin in the brain, and they feel marvelous. But don't get me wrong, it's great. It's absolutely amazing. But then those people take on a false persona. And it is the spiritual persona. It is the New Age persona. It is the suddenly becoming a saint, where all the problems disappear, where their poo no longer smells, where they no longer fart, where they no longer burp, where taxes, well, they're not a problem anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. It's like, when you awaken, you realize many, many things. But going to the toilet, it's still going to smell. You're still going to fart. You're still going to burp. You're still going to get angry with people, especially when they start talking nonsense or they come at you with their ego, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, you can see there are sort of interviews where the Dalai Lama has been very politically correct and remained calm, but you can see under the hood he's sort of boiling. And not just him. I mean, there have been interviews with Sadhguru. The same thing is like, I'm going to be politically correct. I mean, take Osho. Osho, there are times when Osho just came up and basically said, in a polite way, these guys are idiots. So you have to remember, awakening, true spiritual, true Kundalini awakening, connects you to source. It allows you to understand many, many things that you perhaps were not aware of beforehand. This does not mean you become a saint. It doesn't mean that I suddenly have to wear a uniform. Everything has to be love and light. And talking about light, everyone thinks awakening has to do with the connection to light. Why? Because that's what they got told, and they've had this experience, and so it must be all light. And let's just analyze this for a second. Light is a non-permanent state. So it's the religions talk about, or Christianity talks about heaven, and it's light, and it's forever. But light is an impermanent state. The sun, okay, whilst it's there in our lifetime, when we were born it's there, when we die it's still going to be there. But the sun had a start, the sun will have an end. It is an impermanent state within the darkness. It is light for a time, it lives, it dies, it is non-permanent. The only permanent state is the darkness. Perhaps you've read the Emerald Tablets. The Emerald Tablets, Thoth says, yes, all you lot, go follow the light. I'm going to the dark. Because people think the dark is fear, is bad, is negative, is because they are still stuck in a dualistic mindset. Darkness, when it comes to light, is permanence. And here's another thing we have to think about of light. So you see Kundalini yoga. They all dress, their uniform is white because it radiates the light. Anyone who has taken a science class or an art class will actually know that is false. Because light, white, when it comes to light, is the most complete. So when it comes to light, it's white. When it comes to matter, the complete totality in matter, the frequency of all the colors added up is not white anymore, it's black. So those Kundalini yoga guys, they're wearing white to show purity, to show... But because the clothes are not light, they're matter, they're actually reflecting the white off them rather than absorbing it. So if you wanted to absorb the light, you would wear black. And anyone who goes out in the sun and wears black as opposed to white will know it gets a lot hotter. Just because of the color, because you are absorbing it rather than reflecting it. So the whole fallacy of dressing up in white and acting saint-like, because that's what other people do. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to be this spiritual person, and that's what spiritual means. Just goes to show they are still trapped in the matrix, very simply because they are just copying what the previous person did. And they're like, well, if they act like it, I have to act like it. They're still just being the sheep. And it is the black sheep that stands out in the crowd. When you spiritually awaken, when you raise your Kundalini, you will reach bliss states. You will make that bliss state. Eventually, it will become permanent. But whilst you remain in this world, that does not mean to say you will suddenly become impervious to everything. It doesn't mean to say your poo no longer smells. One of the biggest cosmic jokes is what I just said. It's not about the light, because the light is impermanent. But to understand that truly, deeply, and comprehend it, you have to understand non-dualistic aspects, because light is not the opposite of darkness. Light is an impermanent state within the darkness. And when it comes to matter, soil, the richest soil, the most powerful soil, is the dark stuff. That's the one with all the life, with all the bacteria, with all the stuff going on. That's the one that will give you the fruit, the crops, the food. The dark stuff is the good stuff when it comes to soil. The light stuff, the sand, you're not going to grow much in that, are you? That's sort of like the dead stuff. It can be used as food, and it is. The Sahara, when the Sahara winds blow over, it feeds the ocean, it feeds the Amazon. Let's see what happens with that, with these cloud seeding in the countries, and they're cutting off the trade winds. Let's see, they could completely destroy, everyone talks about global warming. Cloud seeding is going to be way worse for climate change than anything else. We'll see. But it's going to change weather patterns way faster than anything else. We're not having a discussion about climate change. We're not having a discussion about pollution and things like that. Just saying cloud seeding is going to make changes in the planet far faster than anything else. But when you understand that spirituality and being spiritual does not mean taking on a false persona of everything's lovely and wonderful and everything's love and light and I trust that everything will. Okay, trust is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. You need to be able to, especially when it comes to energy and Kundalini, you have to be able to fully commit to the energy for it not to react with your ego and therefore become possibly dangerous. This is why when you're awakening your Kundalini, it's like if you come and want to awaken your Kundalini with me, I have an 8-week course, I have a 52-week course, depending how you do it, so we can go through steps and make it safe. If you want to do that, theawakenenergy.com. But you have to understand that it's about being authentic. True spirituality is not about false persona. It's about being authentic. It's about incorporating your shadows, understanding your shadows, knowing your shadows, accepting your shadows, the darker side of your personality. When I say darker, the lower frequencies. Because again, when everyone talks about it's all about light, well, energy is a huge range of frequency. Huge. Light's this. Sound is this. Yeah. So if it's all about love and light, love is a tiny emotion, it's minuscule, and light, which is this, that's all you're ever going to see. That's all you're ever going to experience. When there's all of this in energy, if you've ever studied physics, you'll know energy is a huge spectrum. So if it's all about this for you, because you look to other people and that's what you think, because that's the way they act. I mean, if you think about it, again, going back to Osho, going back to Sadhguru, it's very clear they understand way more than just this and act way more than this. Their spectrum is or was huge. But they might not talk about it that way. There are certain things they will keep quiet simply because it's not so popular. Osho didn't keep it quiet. He was quite open with certain things, and this is why a lot of people didn't like him, and that's why at the end he was even sort of persecuted. They still make documentaries about him in negative ways. And it's because when you understand that, and the people making the documentaries don't even understand this, they only understand this, what do you expect's going to happen? Because they're blind, they can't see it. And the spiritual persona who acts from here doesn't get it either. So when you see people like that, I'm not saying just because they dress in a certain way to judge them. No. Talk to them before doing anything with them. And if you see that they are talking to you from this perspective rather than this perspective, understand, and I'm not saying don't go and work with them. All I'm saying is, if their perspective comes from this, okay, if yours is this, you're going to be able to learn this. Great. You're going to be able to learn from them. You're going to be able to get stuff. That's the amount you're going to be able to learn from them. If you want to actually fully awaken, you've got to learn all of this. If we consider anyone who's been to the Pyramid of Giza and has been inside, for whatever reason it was built, again, not going there. When you go inside, there is a special energy in there. So let's just consider the possibility that the Giza pyramid was built to raise people's consciousness. If you go into the king's chamber or the queen's chamber and you're in there, okay, there's light in there because there's artificial light. But turn off the artificial light. Are you going into a place of light or a place of darkness? Is it light in there or is it dark in there? It's pitch black. There are no windows. And by going into that pitch black, energy dense place, because obviously the stone used to build the pyramids has lots of minerals in it and can be charged very highly with energy. That's why it affects us. But it's dark. And when you stop looking just at this little area, you are able to open up a much bigger part of the spectrum. I'm not saying the whole thing, but you might open up this instead of this. What do you think is going to happen? On the contrary to this, you also have the spiritual warrior persona, where everything's a fight, everything's a battle. We have to fight, we have to. It's the same. They are, instead of awakening to the love and light sainthood idea, they're waking up to the spiritual warrior idea. So here's one fraction, here's another fraction. Rather than seeing the whole thing. Wake up, learn to see the whole thing. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, hit that like button. I'll just put that in there. And think freely, feel freely. Don't think that you have to act in a certain way because other people do. Open your mind, don't close it down. See you in another video.